are going to talk a little bit today about the new polar program of the Emirates. Actually, I had the privilege of visiting Abu Dhabi at Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week this January, where I was introduced to the new Emirates Polar Program. And of course, there are many questions that spring into mind. We have been talking about some of them today and had some excellent answers to some of them concerning the relation of the Arctic and Asia. But still, I'm a little bit curious to know, and I want to ask you, Wassim, you are in the steering committee of the new Emirates Polar Program. You are also a representative of the Presidential Court in the United Arab Emirates. Why did the UAE take that step? Because this is a very ambitious program. Why did you decide to prioritize polar research and polar collaboration at the UEA? Please.
Thank you very much for first to give us the opportunity to actually talk about the newly established polar program. We have to thank the Arctic Circle on many levels, and we have to thank our hosts, the government of India as well. Before that, I'm actually kind of seeing people coming in. I hope it's excitement about the program and not just people waiting for dinner now.
Well, either is both, you know,
okay,
because it's good to have you anyhow.
With that being said, I should steer away from corny remarks and cheesy statements. Well, first and foremost, the drivers are the typical drivers in our ecosystem. I have to start with the political will. The UAE leadership is very visionary. The UAE leadership has been promoting sustainability since the inception of the nation. And we can talk about a historical track record of delivering sustainable projects, integrating sustainability in the national vision and strategy. But there you have a leadership that actually empowers and urges any scientific initiative to pursue sustainability. So that's one. Two, there is this understanding that I referenced before earlier in the day that we are all in one planet. I'm not actually being a reductionist, but what happens in the Arctic impacts everywhere, and what we do impacts the Arctic, and so on and so forth. And we understand within that actually three things come to attention. One, we have a coastal development. We have to understand that. I'm not going to talk about sea level rises. There is the issue of weather phenomena, teleconnections. This is something that we've witnessed firsthand. Last year, we just celebrated an anniversary of a historic rainfall, a downpour. But the component that we're thinking about is how do we move forward with climate resilience and climate adaptation and building climate resilient infrastructure and being attentive to the issue of climate migrants and refugees. It's going to happen in our neighborhood. So that's one, understanding the one planet interconnectedness. I have to say that one of the drivers as well is leadership for the region. The United Arab Emirates is the first Arab nation to launch something of this scale, size, and dedication. And this is actually to amplify the voice of our region and hopefully to set an inspiration for everyone to put hands on deck. We need everyone to actually be part of that. So that's another driver, leadership, regional leadership. And I think last but not least, it's the research capacity, national capacity building. Not that it wasn't there, but we want to kind of grow that and scale it up. So those are the direct or formal drivers. But if you allow me, I have to talk a little bit about influencers and catalysts for our program. I have to thank the Arctic Circle. It's the UAE coming in touch with the Arctic Circle, with the leadership, with Chairman Grimson, and actually kind of vetting that idea. It actually helped us understand a sense of where we should be going. I think there is also an element of baselining. A leading scientist from the UAE with a couple of decades into paleoclimate research was actually thought-provoking in the sense that we need to start something like that. And I think the continuation of COP28 presidency committed us to further work along that sustainability route.
So you think actually that maybe the COP presidency pushed the United Arab Emirates into the polar program because of the interconnection with the climate? issue.
Indeed, amongst many other drivers as well. Yes.
Yes. But you talk about research capacity, and then it's very tempting to go over to you, Ebrahim, because I visited your university, Khalifa University, during my stay in Abu Dhabi. And I'm a little bit, you actually house a lot of the research that's being done in relation with the Polar Program of the Emirates. So could you tell us a little bit about your research focus and, being there, for most of us who come to the Emirates, it's in the desert. So tell us a little bit about how you find the correct research focus when you are organizing a research program about the poles.
Well, thank you. Just maybe for those who do not know Khalifa University, it's a research-intensive university that was established about in 2018. Although it's a very young university, it's been for the past 7-8 years #1 in UAE. We are ranked this year by the Time Higher Education to be the second in the Middle East and Africa region, so the MENA region, and we're 37 in Asia. We're a powerhouse when it comes to research, not only in the UAE, but in the region as well. And I think our destinies sort of met with this program because we had a nucleus, interest within the university, within the faculty, and we have some of our faculty here that will speak tomorrow on that. So we already had a nucleus, and we were able to kind of grow that, and I think that's where our sort of destiny, as I said, met with the Emirates Polar Program, and we're proud to host this center, the Polar Research Center at Khalifa University. And as Wassim mentioned, sort of double down and magnify this research in the region and also globally. And this is what we're good at Khalifa University, and you've probably seen that. We partner with universities from east to west, north to south, and our goal is basically to stimulate positive change and improving the future. This is sort of our statement of the vision, and this actually fits perfectly within our strategy and aligns with the government strategy as well.
But tell me a little bit more about the collaboration that you have at the University of Khalifa with different universities around the world, because we have been talking a little bit about the importance of international collaboration when it comes to science, not least when we're thinking about this interregional collaboration. So tell us a little bit about that.
So some of the work that we've done before we started our collaboration in this domain, we had worked in a research group on climate modeling through the Earth Sciences department that we have, remote sensing, using satellites to discover challenges in harsh condition environments, and also material science, whether it's sensing or whether it's an infrastructure that withstand harsh conditions. And before we even launched the center, because we are action-driven institution in an action-driven country, we signed an MOU with UIT, this partnership, we've already also had faculty workshops in both institutions, and we've launched several projects that are going to be kicking off soon with the Arctic University of Tromsø, of Norway and Tromsø. And this will build capacity between in Khalifa University as well, and in exchanging student, faculty, researchers going into Arctic expeditions. As a matter of fact, we have 2 students this August are going into Arctic expedition from Tromsø to Canada. So that's part of the actions that we're doing nowadays. And the plan of this center is to partner with other universities. And hopefully by the beginning of next year, we'll launch several programs within the Emirates Polar Program and the Center Program to include others. As mentioned this morning by Mr. Samir, we want to be a magnet to create this coalition between the different constituents of different stakeholders that are looking into this global climate challenge.
Well, you mentioned the University of the Arctic in Tromsø, and Jan-Gunnar, of course, Norway has not only being an Arctic nation, but also a nation of intensive Arctic research. Now you have made this memorandum of understanding between those two universities. And of course, one wonders, what benefits do Norwegian researchers see from collaborating with Khalifa University and the Emirates Polar Program? Since you have such a long history and intensive knowledge of the Arctic, what are the added benefits and added values that you see?
Well, I will take one step back, because the reason why I'm sitting here today is actually what happened during the COP in Dubai 1.5 years ago, because our government met with the UAE government, and bilaterally they decided that they wanted to have a program, a green transition, a green initiative, and deepen the relations between UAE and Norway. And as part of that, it was also developed a polar initiative. So this is the starting point, and I think it's important. The COP was mentioned also. Well, yeah, we have a long history in Arctic and Antarctic research. We have infrastructure, but as we have discussed extensively today, we need all hands on deck. We need to collaborate. We need to, in this difficult world, isolation must be met with collaboration. And this is part of what we see. And we see in particular that some of the niches that they have in Khalifa University and in the Emirates as such are something that we don't have. Artificial intelligence is one thing. Your technology and engineering skills is also highly valuable for us. And the teleconnection, which we also discussed so much today. I mean, we talked about the monsoon, but the very complex teleconnections from the Arctic in particular through ocean and atmosphere is also hitting the Mid-East region. And I'm sure that sea level rise, changes in weather patterns, coastal erosions, you could add pollution, are things that will add to our kind of picture and also research. So this very fascinating, I should mention this student exchange, because that's the first concrete collaboration that will happen in August and September this summer, where my university has chartered a sail ship for 2 months from Nuuk, sailing through the Northwest Passage, ending up in Anchorage. And the idea is actually to have a global community of students, young people on board, educate them, bond them, inspire them, and make them the pathfinders of tomorrow. And we are so happy that Khalifa will also send students, and there are students from Asia and Europe and many places, which we think will be a very, very lifelong experience and memory, but also leave a legacy. And I think the timing of your engagement with respect to the IPY, which was discussed in the previous session or panel, is also very, very good, because now we are ramping up for the IPY, and I'm sure that the UAE will be a very integrated part of that endeavor too.
Now, you could say that the collaboration between those two universities is a collaboration of a non-polar university and the polar university. But when we come to you, Thamban, India and the UAE have also made an agreement on collaboration in polar research, and you conduct the National Center for Polar and Ocean Research, India. So there are two non-polar nations collaborating there. I would like to ask you a little bit about the opportunities that you can actually see from that partnership with the UAE. Two non-polar nations, both placing significant emphasis on polar research right now.
Thank you. I think the most common, the binding, I would say, the thread which both India and UAE is essentially we are Asian countries with a very common goal, with a strong historically cultural as well as partnerships and with a strategic partnership existing. So there was many things very common, I would say. The ambition actually to be contributing to the sustainable the globe. So I think the whole idea which basically started, I think, I just find it's quite an exciting, the way the Emirates has come up with this Polar program. This just started basically, I think, the whole idea and as I think the president of Khalifa University is quite a very actionable way. Since last September, when they held the first the workshop to think about the idea, from there to the current time, I can see the speed at which this program has grown by even within less than a year. I would say that it is bound to be quite a huge success. So we as being a non-polar country, at the same time, India has a much longer history in the polar regions with more than 45 years of the experience in Antarctic and nearly about 15 years into Arctic and so on. We have gathered a lot of experience during this time, and that experience has some commonality. That both being the non-polar, as the same with an Asian country with a similar cultural the linkage. That long experience, everyone make mistakes when you start a program, and it's always important to learn from others' mistakes so that you don't make the same mistakes, or you also learn from the others' experience so that you grow by leaps and bounds. So I feel that huge opportunity do exist with this kind of a collaboration, which an MOU signed between this Emirates Polar Program as well as the Indian Antarctic Program, the NCPO. I would say that even more importantly, that the opportunities is such that Asia has become I would say, is quite a huge the focus or the center point of the polar activities of late. If you look at the assets, if you look at the infrastructure, if you look at the operations, all over the Antarctic and Arctic, if you look at it, actually, it's quite a huge, enormous growth which has seen for the last decade, as it provides a kind of a light that how a program, how a non-polar countries can contribute significantly to the polar programs and polar what you call the objectives, basically, because it's as Mr. Syed, Wassim Syed is rightly again started from the very beginning. It impacts us, therefore we should understand it. If we understand it, I think we will be able to contribute it better way. I think the whole crux of the idea is that we want to help understanding that place better, because it helps us. Ultimately, it contributes to all nations around the world. So it is not actually that we just want to do something which for the sake of doing it, because we have a stake in it, because it impacts us. The all Greenland ice sheet which is melting, the sea level is not increasing in Greenland or the Arctic region. The much more sea level is increasing in the mid latitudes and lower latitudes. That's something means actually if you look at the equitable way of the hazards associated with those things are much higher in the tropical and mid latitude regions. So there is a strong reason that we need to be there. Now, how do we can contribute? I think that's an enormous multiple ways we can contribute to these collaborations, by student exchange, contributing to joining the Antarctic expeditions, because we have expeditions, we have 2 stations in Antarctica, so we have quite a large opportunities. We have a program in a strong research program in the Southern Ocean, and there are multiple opportunities to carry out research, collaborative research, exchange students programs, and contribute to the research activities. And there are the multiple ways which actually currently India also being the chair of the FOBs, FOPS, I think you just want to again raise this point actually, because Asian Forum on Polar Science is one big body of all the Asian countries working in the polar regions, and we have a regular meetings, regular exchange of ideas, regular collaborative projects, visiting fellowships and so on. So that provides a kind of an ecosystem where I would say that we welcome, in fact, UAE to that, because there is a strong drive. That's very important. There is a strong political support, which is again most important. And there are competent researchers existing over there who are with a very strong support system at the university. I think that will make a great collaboration.
Thank you. Jan-Gunnar, would you like to add something?
The need for efficiently utilize very expensive infrastructure. I think it's a rule of thumb then, if you go to Antarctica for an expedition, 70% of the costs are connected to logistics. And some nations have vessels and stations and instruments, parks and satellites and so on. So make that very efficient. Using them and several users is also very important when it comes to polar collaboration.
One thing, though, I would like to ask you maybe, Wassim, because for scientists, collaboration comes naturally. You know, they understand the meaning of actually sharing information, sharing knowledge, sharing ideas, but that does not apply for everybody. And you being a non-polar nation, entering this field of polar research and the polar program, and showing leadership, as you mentioned earlier, do you have any worries about political reactions? Now we are actually, because even though you have already presented this program, this is the first international forum where we are discussing it. And we have already talked about a certain sensitivity coming from the polar regions when it comes to international collaboration. How do you see that, and how do you plan to tackle that?
Thank you very much. I have to mention that this is an Emirates Polar Program.
Yeah.
And then the choice of words was very important at the early stages of formulating this, because we do understand a geopolitical dimension to discussions in the Arctic, within the Arctic family, and maybe probably the science relevance, although there is another component in the Antarctic ecosystem. And there is a very much an interest in development, climate resilience in the third pole, dubbed rightfully so, for the Hindu-Kush Himalayas. With that being said, it comes naturally to scientists to collaborate, but probably the politicians have to align through multilateral work. And one way to kind of force that multilateral work is actually to show up. So the UAE decided to show up, and we're trying to bring in the name into the dimension. I think being non-polar in the geographic sense is also important in the political sense, that non-polar countries can diffuse polarized states or tensions. So that could be an element of convening. And then again, this is in line with the ethos of the country, being a convener for a good cause, being a global citizen in that sense, and working towards the common good. A non-polar country, even triggering a little bit of curiosity, suspicion, or call it what you may, at a global level, could be setting the stage for that much needed discussion, that needed dialogue and communication. Because it's one way to resolve that, and it's a win in the big picture when you realign and bring also one more force to join together through common resources into an efficient game. Because if we want to beat the clock now, I think it has to be a game of efficiency. I think everyone has to be aligned and making sure that the resources are complementary rather than competing. And that's why we didn't shy away from stepping in. And we kept it very broad. We said it's the Emirates Polar Program. We are actually, and when the leadership asked us where is the priority, we sought that directive from the leadership for the priority. And then the answer was very clear. You should engage on all fronts. Just to actually emphasize the importance of actually having an Arctic discussion, having an Antarctic discussion, and why not having a discussion also as an observer or a facilitator or probably someone that could actually help in the third pole.
Now we have dinner in 15 minutes, so I will be opening the floor for your questions very soon, but I would like to ask, you who are working within the scientific sector, do you sense that sensitivity, if I begin with you, Ebrahim, when it comes to non-polar versus polar countries and universities?
Just as you rightly mentioned in your question earlier to Wassim, I think we don't see that. Scientists tend to kind of break boundaries, and they just see science for the sake of science and research. So we don't see that sort of resistance or sort of, I would say, political agenda being sort of presented in working together, and that actually made us feel very welcomed in this I would say field right after we decided to take part in it. So I think that is one of the solutions that we see we can also be part of. Maybe on the same note, I just want to say that the climate change we've seen through history is not going to be solved by geopolitical, in the geopolitical domain. I think technologies may be the solution for the time being, doing the right research, and also ensuring that research is translated into tangible, I would say, technologies that would save our Earth and reduce or even mitigate or even eliminate all these challenges that we face today in our climate. The politics changes, I would say every few years when you have changes in presidents and so on and so forth. And I don't think we can sustain this fluctuation in decision making. And I think science should be very focused. We also need to be very swift and rapid. We cannot wait, and this is my message to the scientists, we cannot wait 3 years, 5 years. And that's why, again, working hands on hands, having all hands on deck to expedite our research outcomes and translating those into reality would be something that we need to work in as a scientific group, and also in collaboration, of course, with the politicians and all the other organizations involved into this critical matter.
Just very quickly to both of you, Jan-Gunnar and Thamban, on sensitivity. Do you feel
absolutely
or sense that?
I wouldn't be honest if I said it wasn't there.
Yeah.
I meet it, if not every day, every week, and this goes in many directions because it's really hard to decouple an activity also from an academic institutions to what is going on nationally and internationally. So that is a sensitivity, but that shouldn't be an argument for not reaching out, collaborating, and solving the big problems. But of course we need to protect our self-interest, national interest, and all these things that we also need to care about, but at the same time also having a very healthy, I think, position and attitude towards scientific collaboration, which is so extremely important. But sensitivity is there, yes.
And Thamban, if you...
Yeah, I would say that actually the political regimes keep changing in any way. So, so there is nothing called, the permanency in all those decisions and all the things which we see in the geopolitical situation now. This is also going to change. So the opportunities for the bringing the new countries into Polar Program would be at that time would be actually you add the new momentum, you add the new energy which is probably fading in some place. So you are able to sustain the globally. I think the program is able to sustain because ultimately the global requirement has been there have been never a better chance, better time to do polar research than what is now, because science specifically and categorically states that the world is climate is changing, and I think that what happens there is the most importantly more dramatically. So time won't wait for a political regime to change to study that. So I think that's an opportunity for I would say new polar programs, new countries to join these efforts to make it effective and remains there is a threshold amount of activities continues even during those regime changes.
So I'm going to open up the floor now for your questions, and I already have a question here, and please state your name and then bring me the questions. I have another one then in the back.
Hi, good evening. Thank you, Excellency, for giving me the opportunity. My question would be to Wassim. Congratulations on the Emirates Polar Program. Definitely seems interesting, though I have to wrap my head around how Emirates sees itself in the region. But earlier in the evening, we were discussing about the Arctic exclusivity, right? So does Emirates become, initiating a polar program, does it have a longer geopolitical vision as well? Do you see yourself as a major geopolitical actor in the region, like most others, especially India? India definitely has a geopolitical aspiration in the region. Does Emirates see that?
Wassim, please.
That's a straightforward one. Please keep them simple and direct and easy. The UAE is actually interested in the science, and specifically in action-oriented science. I am not dismissing the other element, but I'm just saying it was formulated around building national capacity, enhancing research, and actually supplementing the global efforts where and when needed. So the short answer is that the primary vision now is around science.
But science can create soft power.
Well, that's actually one way, and then it depends on the, again, the exclusive club, whether in the Arctic or in other regions, depending on the topic. I think the science and its outcome and how it's steered would send the right messaging for those who seek soft power. I can actually talk a little bit about the UAE space program. And historically, when the UAE launched the space program, everyone was, again, why? The UAE didn't answer the why with why not, but the message was clear. We want the science and we want to make the UAE a beacon of hope. And this was the name of the first mission to Mars, in an area that was war-torn, in an area that was breaking down, in an area that was being radicalized. And then the answer of the UAE was, we have to actually bring ambitious, hopeful projects in science. So the soft power that the UAE exercised was influencing others for good, the good being finding solutions. So if this is the soft power you're talking about, then yes, we're definitely seeking soft power to solve the biggest challenges that we have.
I have another question here in the back, please.
Hello, Maxim Gutyunov, South Euro State University, Russia. My question is addressed to speakers from Emirates, Arab Emirates, United UAE right now is a BRICS country. And according to your new program, do you plan Arctic cooperation with Russia within BRICS framework or bilaterally framework?
So Wassim and Ebrahim?
I'm going to answer what I thought I actually heard, which is when will the UAE engage with Russia on polar collaboration? And you rightfully mentioned that the UAE became a full member in the BRICS Plus group as of 2024. And the UAE did participate in the Ocean and Polar Sciences and Technology Working Group last year. And the UAE will be actually participating in that within the ecosystem of the BRICS context. As for the specific bilateral, this is a direction that is still being discussed internally. But we foresee that science brings together where things probably might feel a little bit sensitive. We really believe in the science diplomacy. We think science brings together.
Would you like to add anything? No. More questions from the floor. I see a hand raised there. Please.
Just one quick point. Typically, a lot of projects, in the education space tend to gravitate towards physical sciences. So just a point I had was, the Arabian Sea has a small population of humpback whales which don't migrate. So it would be wonderful to see a group of students from Iceland, UAE, India, and Norway exchanging notes on the Arabian Sea and the Norwegian Sea on humpback whales. But yeah, that's about it.
Thank you for that comment. Would you care to comment on that? student exchanges?
So it was more a comment, but like in our MOU, there is an exchange paragraph and ambition, both for students and staff. So we will certainly see exchange both ways of personnel. Yes.
Maybe just to add, we're right now putting a proposal for the center activities for the next 4 to 5 years, and capacity building is part of it. Basically ensuring that we have young scientists that come in through the activities that we'll be doing with our partners, and ensuring that also we have researchers visiting different institutions, visiting sites where they need to study, and creating programs around those to ensure the dissemination of knowledge, sharing of knowledge, and then being much more impactful together rather than individually. Yeah.
We have time for one last question. Yes, we have one last question before we go to dinner. It probably will be very long and complicated and require long answers.
No, I don't think so. Katrin, you know me as well. Pia from the University of Iceland. I'd actually like to ask about the possibility of collaborating with the University of Iceland. So I just want to kind of throw that out there as a possibility for student exchange or something like that to Khalifa University. Thank you.
Yes, so we're a university. We collaborate with anyone that we can add value to, and also maybe they add value to us. So we're very open to discussions and collaborations. And again, our ambitions is to make positive impact globally with our partners. So looking forward to talking to you after this.
Okay, I want to say that it's going to be very interesting to watch the new polar program of the United Arab Emirates. I've already had a taste of it in my visit to Abu Dhabi, and I think a lot of exciting things are going to happen and a lot of new collaborations. But without further ado, I want to thank Ebrahim, Jan-Gunnar, Thamban, and Wassim for your participation in this panel. And I believe that dinner is ready. So thank you all.